I am going to go ahead and get us started. Um, as I said earlier, my name is Grace Gardner. I am the program coordinator at Remerge. Um, and for those of you who may not know, Remerge is a community building organization based in the neighborhood of Sweet Auburn in Atlanta. Um, we have lots of programming ranging from Bible study. We have events where we allow community members in the neighborhood to come and connect on Saturdays. Well, that's what we did before COVID began. We also have arts programming, and we are excited to have Sachi Rome join us today and lead a workshop around expressive mixed media figure making. Um, Sachi is from Atlanta. And Sachi, can you just tell us a little bit about your practice, how you became an artist, what kind of work you create, and also just what you've been up to within the last 4 months and how COVID has impacted your art making practice?
Sure. So I'm a born and bred ATLN, as we say, born at Grady Hospital. I have a twin sister named Toki. She's also an artist. And some people know this, some people don't. But I also have twin brothers. We're 13 months apart. So I look at my mother as like the all-time champion of moms because I have two kids and there is no way I can imagine the life that she was making for us, but she did it. And as far as my becoming an artist, I've always made things. My kid would say that we grew up poor and it was sad because he asked me like, how's childhood and what did we do? I used to always like take random stuff and make things out of it. Popsicle sticks became doll furniture. I'll make little paper dolls, like the accordion dolls, and then I make clothes for them and make whole little vignettes on a bookshelf of what they were doing because my mom really didn't have a lot of money to like buy us stuff or let us go places. So I made sure to entertain myself and I read a lot of books. So my imagination has been fed by what some people would say boredom, but I feel like it's my superpower. Like I love my imagination. And I go from an art teacher and still am an art teacher. Like that's my business of trade. I've been doing it for like 22 years and I got divorced about, I will say like 6 years ago. And it became this space of what am I going to do with myself and where do I deal with some of my own like stuff. So art became therapy. It became like this secondary life that I found for myself. And getting divorced and asking myself, what do I want my life to look like? I found the answer in my art life. I really enjoyed and always have enjoyed old things. Love the goodwill, love taking old stuff and giving it new life. And that's just been something that, because we grew up poor, I always thought was of value. I never looked at it as, oh, you can't get new stuff. I would be like, ooh, look what I found. Like it was a treasure hunt. So my art practices currently really revolving around the ancestors. And I truly feel like at this point in my career, I've stumbled upon this doorway of figures that visit my studio. These are people that I feel like have gone too soon in life and they visit my space and I've gotten in tune with this in between space where I can deliver these figures in an abstracted form where it's just the energy of the people. It's not necessarily a portraiture in the classic sense where I'm capturing like their resemblance, but I feel like it's truly like the essence of that person, the spirit of the person. And I think I arrived at that because I've visited and been visited by death so much in my teaching career. I've had like 7 students pass through different situations and 2 father figures that left me, as well as my grandfather. So within dealing with all of those things, I feel like in addressing those things to my art, it left this space where now my ancestors come and they let me give them new space in life and I enjoy it. It's taking my love of old things because I'll use paper that I may have just laying around. Like this is hymnal paper that my grandma used to have a whole bunch of old Bibles and Handmill. She's a part of Big Bethel African American Episcopalian Church. Like she was on an usher board, and she has dementia. She doesn't remember a lot, but in shutting down her house, I saved a lot of those things, and I like using that in some way to give that memory a forward life. So I use these old pages, the magazines that my grandma kind of hoarded at one point. Like she kept things. She loved Goodwill too. So a lot of old things that I use, the papers, the random little tools that my granddad kept around, like even the tweezers that I use to create my current work with the collages. Grandma had like this whole collection of files, and I'm rambling a little bit, but the tweezers, the file, all of those are things that I'm actually using to make my work now, because it's like, oh, this is already here. Let me give it a new purpose. So I just enjoy this cycle of recycling and redelivering not just materials to a new practice, but also the imagery I feel like is rebirthing these people. So yeah, that's where I am. That's what I'm doing. And yeah, I'm obsessed with color, texture, and human face.
Thank you so much for sharing. Before we do a deep dive into the workshop, I just want to go over some quick guidelines. So first, Sachi's camera is face away from her, so she can't see anyone's faces. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or just put it in the chat feature and I'll read it out loud for her. Next, as I said at the beginning, feel free to keep your camera off if that makes you feel most comfortable. You can have it on and facing you, or you can even angle it at your work so that we can see what you're creating. This is meant to be a space where we are all just able to commune with one another, create together. And so if you also just want to introduce yourself after Sachi gets us started and share a little bit of why you're here with us today and what you're working on, that's welcomed as well. But Sachi, I'm going to turn it back over to you. If you could just tell us what we're doing and what the first steps to getting started are, that would be great. And one last note, I added 3 outlines that Sachi sent me earlier to the chat feature. If any of you would like to use that as a starting base for this workshop, please feel free to click on them, open them, print them if you have a printer, or draw them yourself as we're getting started. Okay, Sachi, we're ready for you.
Okay, so I really like playing in paint. I really like playing with texture. And at some point I realized I have all these like really interesting papers. Like I spent one summer just literally playing around and experimenting with making different types of textures, and how can I make something that just visually pleases me, but there's no object there. So in doing that, I have this whole body of papers. What do I do with them? So I started playing around with the concept of taking my Anything But Brushes series, which is literally where I make imagery and create my ancestor imagery with anything but a paintbrush. You know, I'd use like this little business here, and I'll tell you more about how I made this. Plastic fork, plastic knife, anything but a brush to make my textures and patterns and pull that energy forward. Because I felt like in using those mediums, it made the energy come forward, not necessarily my conscious mind, but a subconscious taking over. So I wanted to meld that practice with all of these papers that I have. So I thought about it, and I came up with these silhouettes. These silhouettes are pretty easy to make. I sent this one to Grace. If you have it, that's wonderful. If you don't, no big deal. But I started playing around with almost like the idea of puzzle making, where you start with the shape and you just fill it in with all of those really fun and interesting papers that I made. So to start with, we have to make some papers. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do that. And the nice thing about this for me, and hopefully for you, is that you can literally use any type of art supplies that you have. So if you've got crayons, I'll show you how crayons are awesome. You can use paint if you have paint. I'm going to start with the paint because I already put this down. even if you don't have a paintbrush, but you just happen to have some paint laying around, house paint is fine. This cheap apple barrel paint is great. If you have the wonderful luxury of my great studio paint that I love, that's fine too. It's the kitchen sink of art projects. You can pretty much go in your bag of tricks and find whatever you've got to play with, and then come to the ending point where we take our silhouette, we use our papers, and we cut them up and let them fill in this shape. I've done that already on this piece. I don't know, you let me know, Grace, if they can see that pretty good. Am I too close?
Can you angle it down just a little bit more?
How's that?
Can't see it. Can't see it much. Yeah, that's good.
So this literally started out in the same manner with me making a bunch of different papers and then coming up with what I would like that silhouette to be. And it's really organic. You start kind of filling it in, and where you see your eye kind of needs something else, you play around and add that in. It's really relaxing. I find that it's a lot less stressful for me because at the end of the day, the work is kind of guiding itself. It's organic. You don't have an endpoint that has to look like something in particular. So I like doing them, and I hope you'll like doing them too. So we're gonna go ahead and get started making the papers first. We'll start with the paint that way, and we'll have time to let that dry. I've squeezed out 2 colors here. The only thing I'll say about color is don't go overboard. In most of my classes, I'll tell people 2 or 3 colors to start with, and think about how they go together. Like if you're getting dressed for going out somewhere, you're not gonna pull out every outfit with every color and try to make all those things go. You're gonna try to be selective and coordinate. So think about how do you coordinate your colors so that eventually everything comes together and we get something called harmony where all the things go together. So yeah, I'm using this flat side. You can use a credit card, anything hard, a piece of cardboard. But if you don't have a paintbrush, this is a great way to just get paint moving. And I find it's really satisfying. If you wiggle a little bit, you get that little wave there. And while that's wet, I can go back into that if I want to. This is just a top, little top off of a Sharpie. Grace, can they see that okay?
Yes.
So I'm just kind of twisting it a little bit, and it gives it a pattern. Because again, this is just about the mark making, having a little fun and giving it some texture. There's some paint left on here, so you can kind of go off in the extra space and get that excess off. Now, that same card that we had actually still has some paint left on it. So I'm just gonna drag that. Because it's a little drier, you get a different effect. So that's what I end up here. And if I wanted to, I could keep playing with that. And I think I will give it a little bit more. Let's go with this gray.
What should we do with the figures? Should everyone start to draw their silhouettes first?
So you do need the silhouette. If you don't have it, but you have a magazine, so you have a couple of options. You can use the silhouette, but if you've got a magazine that you already pulled together, like if you were thinking about it, something that has a pretty big face, it doesn't have to take up all the space, but this works good. Something like this. And again, it's really what you already have. If you have it, you can use this as well. But yeah, I would say if you don't have the magazine and you do want to go ahead with the silhouette, go ahead and trace that out now, because I'm just going to be making papers and I can go back over this. It's no big deal. Like there's lots of, I'm going to go through about 4 or 5 different ways to make the paper. So go ahead and get the tracing done. And I'm just going to take this gray, nothing formal, just a little smoosh. And again, pull. And I like to overlap it in the color somewhere, but not all over, because I want to see what type of color mixing it'll do. okay if your smushes don't look nice, because paint dries, and when paint dries, you can paint over it. That's the one thing I really like about acrylics. Watercolors are a little bit less forgiving, but if that's what you have, that's fine. So yeah, that's that piece of paper. I'm gonna add one more layer of paint because I want you to see what I can do with this little tool here. For anybody that's still sitting around, you can take a piece of stiff cardboard. This is actually like a sample from Home Depot. You know how you can go in there and check out the flooring? So these are flooring samples, they're free. I take them generously because they are free. But these make great little, I don't know, scrape out tools for me. I take them and I'll cut little notches. And it's just a regular pair of scissors. I'm cutting triangles across the bottom. Try to be kind of similar with the spacing. You'd think it'd be harder to cut, but it's not. The wooden tile laminate samples. So now you've got this little edge down here, and that can be fun for a couple of reasons. So I'm gonna add a little bit more paint. It works better when the paint is pretty wet. And just squeeze. So, move this out the way. You want it nice and smooth underneath. I'm gonna swipe them first, gently. And I'm gonna take that extra paint and just wipe that off on the bottom. Don't need it. Now, here's the fun part. Hold your paper nice and firm and turn. They sell tools at Michael's. They're made of silicone that do this. They're not necessarily cheap, and I am cheap, kind of to a certain extent. So, yeah. This is one of my favorite little hacks. And as you can see, it'll swipe out a layer for you and give you a nice, interesting texture. So yeah, I'm gonna set that aside and let it dry. We'll come back and play with that later, maybe. All the papers that you make, you don't have to use them today. That's why I ended up with a whole collection of them, because I made so many of them, because it's fun to make them. So I'm gonna grab some crayons now, because that was with our paint. Grace, check in with everybody. I don't want to leave them.
Do you all feel like you are following along pretty well? Okay, I see some head nods, yes. Oh, Randy, I like what you have created. Thank you for showing us. Um, if you have any questions at any point, either place them in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask. Or you can also send me a message privately if that's easier for you.
I'm just wiping off the extra paint because waste not, want not. Maybe nothing, maybe something later. I'm gonna set that aside because it's dirty. Did I bring myself a paper towel? Hold on. Hold on one moment. I made these with crayons. We'll have a look there while I grab me a napkin. Little bubbles. These little circles, you can put them on top of paper that's already got some paint on it. Say we'd already finished up with that paper over there and it was dry. I have this one here and I might add that on top of here. I don't throw away anything. If I think it doesn't look nice, I'll just set it aside and probably put paint on top of it or add a pattern or spray paint on top of it. But I'm all about trying to just figure a way to make it work. Probably too much Project Runway. But yeah, this is with crayons. Pretty much everybody at home generally will have some old school Crayolas laying around. So I used a little circle stencil here, and if you have a hole punch, it's easy to just punch a bunch of holes in a piece of paper to get this. I had a stencil, but if you don't, you can still just do it freehand. And I'm just gonna do circles, and I'm gonna show you how to do it with oil pastels. I've got oil pastels over here too, and crayons. So again, kitchen sink, whatever you've got laying around, whatever you happen to wanna like just pull out of the dusty bin because you haven't had time to play with it lately or any ideas. So yeah, this is just an orange. I'm just making little circles. As I go inside, I get a little lighter on the pressure. So I'm pressing down hard on the outside. And as I come inside, I'm kind of lifting up my pressure a little bit so it gets lighter. Believe it or not, people don't think about crayons as something you can shade with, but you can. It's all about how much weight you're putting on your hand. So if we leave that little lighter circle, gives us a little bit of a highlight. And if you leave it lighter as you come inside, when you come back with your next color, you want to think about what's good, who's neighbors with who. Colors on the color wheel that are right next to each other are friends. Colors that are like oddly placed sometimes can be a problem. So warm colors work with warm colors, think sun. And cool colors, purples, greens, they work well together. So think about what goes together, and just slap something together because then you get dull muddiness. I'm just going back and doing the same thing. Where that light spot was, that yellow stand out a little bit better. And we're going to do this kind of pink. And at this point, I have no plan as far as what these will be used for. It's all about just kind of playing around. I'm going to play right on top of that spot there. I think that'll look pretty. It's all about just relaxing, making a paper. It's like sitting in class or back in the day when there was actually physical meetings. I would always just sit in the corner while they were talking and relax by doodling. It's a good way to relax. Pay attention, but relax. So these are going right on top of that paint that I smushed earlier. And it does some nice contrasting colors where it meets up that. So again, I could keep filling in with that if I wanted to. I think that would look really nice as a filled in little page. I'm also going to show you how you can do it with the stencil. It goes a little bit faster because they're smaller. And again, if you don't have stencils, no big deal. I'm going to show you some other freehand patterns in a bit. Do like the idea of showing you these two. And I skip around. So it looks like they're kind of floating away. And you can mix in other colors. What goes with my pink? Nice purple, perhaps. Sure. Okay, I'm dawdling. We'll put one more color inside just so you can see how they mix nicely. Crayons will blend for you. So these are my little bubbles. I could keep playing with this, kind of like it, but just want to show you a few other things. That's how my little bubble sheet came out with the stencil. And this is my freehand little area right here for anybody tuning back in. It's the freehand area, just circles, keep it light toward the middle. Now, these, they look a little bit different. They're done with the oil pastel. So if you've got those laying around, your classic old school oil pastel, same technique, just a different result. I'm trying to stick with the similar color palette because we want these papers to work together. They can be totally different patterns, but you still want them to have some type of harmony, some type of connection, and color can bring things together really nicely. And I'm not being really neat or anything with this. I'm just putting the color down because the pastel's kind of messy. It's gonna smear anyway, which is what we want. So we're gonna go back to our crayon, Crayola old school. We're just gonna color the whole bubble in. What that does is mix. It mixes our oil pastel in with our crayon, and they play nice together. Some things don't play nice, as in they don't mix well together. Oh, who's texting me? Okay. We've got that done and taken care of. So that's what our little bubbles look like. If we wanted to, we could keep filling this sheet in. I actually have some markers. Let's talk about markers. If you've got markers, these I found at Goodwill because God loves me. And just tapping does a really nice job. Give me a nice circle. Now, if I wanted to make a fade out effect, kind of start out close together and start spreading that out. That's enough about bubbles. So we'll come back to that paper if we decide we're going to use it. You can put paint on top of this because the crayon will resist any type of paint you put on it that's based on water, but we're not going to do that right now. So I want to show you some other things. We've done our crayon. We've got our, let's talk about randomness. Randomness. So when I say randomness, I mean your good old-fashioned scribble scrabble. You're mindlessly making marks. And I don't want that pink. Let's get something a little more contrasty, something darker, purple. Your kid comes in and just starts doing something like that. They're having a good time. You think it's, what is this kid doing? This kid has a great start to something, in my opinion, because this nice random space can then be played with. You can go back into those spaces and just think about marks. The simple, lowly line. And I'm back to my crayon because I figure you either have crayons or colored pencils, which I do have some, I think, in here. Oh, these are terrible. I hate these, but we're going to use them today. So just filling in these random little spaces and varying the spacing on the marks. So really close lines versus really spaced out lines. Up and down versus horizontal. And you can keep doing that with different colors. Again, the idea at this point is just to get some type of really cool, fun paper made and relax. So I could change this up and do, I don't know, just squircles. Squircles I call, they're like making a bunch of figure 8s or S's. So I'm just doing this. Tight little curly cues. And you can loosen that up. You can add another color in there with it. We'll see if this goes well. Sure, it did. Same thing. Just layering on top. So all that random space can become a nice, simple way to break up your space and give you a place to play. Tight little circles. This is pretty much whatever you can imagine. Fill that one in solid. Maybe we'll fill this one in solid. Come back with the blue. So we're thinking about what looks good next to something. Maybe fill this one in. And come back. Why not? Put a little bit of shading on the end. Stack the color for something interesting. So you can keep doing this until you fill up the page, or you can just use little sections of it depending on where you want to go. I don't want to spend too much time on it because Grace, I don't know what my time is looking like. Can you check in and see how everyone's doing?
How is everyone doing? It's 12:41 right now, and I'm thinking that maybe around 1:10 we can begin to show off our figures.
So how about I show them how to put it all together? I think 12:41 means let's cut some paper.
Okay.
Let's cut some paper. So I don't know what figure you guys selected, but I'm gonna go with the one that I started the original piece on that was on your post. So this is the face, and you've got a couple of options again, because it's all about what you're comfortable with, what you have available. This is just a drawn out face. If I wanted to, I could just cut this out and be done with it. But I can also put some oil pastel on the back, and I do like sharing this trick with anyone who's not necessarily comfortable with drawing. If you've got a monitor, you've got a light box, that means you can just take a piece of typing paper, make the size of whatever you need, and just trace that out with a pencil. Putting oil pastel on the back makes for cheap tracing paper. So if I lay this down on my paper, and do I want to use this whole sheet? Sure, why not? This is what we started with. So I can go ahead and just lay this down in the area, and I'm showing you here where my textures are. And I'm gonna lay this on the back of this, just because I don't want to get any of this random orange. I don't like this orange. I don't want it on this side. So I'm gonna lay that on top. Here's where my bit of tape comes in play. You don't have to tape it down, but you know, I'm a bit clumsy, so I like to tape it down. And then we're just gonna start, no, where's my pen? Here we go. So we're gonna trace back over this, and my oil pastel's a little old, so I might have needed to put a bit more on there. If your trace out ends up being really light, add more pastel, nice and heavy. You can actually do this with crayon too. Believe it or not, crayon will transfer. So on your line on the back, you want to just make sure, again, see how that I've got that pastel running along the outline of my drawing. And again, if you don't want to save your stencil, you can just tape it to your paper and cut that. But I personally like to have an extra layer of comfort and having the original shape there. So yeah, we'll just trace this out real quick. It doesn't have to be perfect, because again, we're relaxing. We're not trying to stress out about our low stress art project. I'm using an ink pen, but my original drawing was with a colored pencil, I think. And the reason I use a pen is so that I can see where I've already been. So if I use this stencil again, which I probably will, I'll use a different color pen, or I'll use a colored pencil that's been sharpened pretty good in a different color. That way I'll know. Every time I use it, I use a different color, so I don't lose my line. I feel like I should have one of those fast forward things. All right, let's peek. You don't want to just pull it up, you want to kind of have a look-see. I'm missing a few lines, but because I was pressing down so hard, even though the pastel is not there, I've kind of engraved the paper a little bit. You know how when you write too hard on your paper? So I can still see the little outline, and I can just use that to cut with. So that's what I'm gonna do. And again, I'm looking at this side, but what I'm actually interested in is this area in here. And it doesn't matter that I didn't fill in all of it because we're gonna use different paper for that. Scissors are great. If you've got an X-Acto knife, you know, feel free to use that as well. Curves, I'm just kind of turning the paper as I cut. That way it gets a little bit more smoother edge versus stopping and starting. We're using our little template. And again, tracing it is great because that means you get to keep using that same template. If you don't, you're gonna just end up cannibalizing this original one eventually. So what we end up with is a base for our face. That's gonna be the foundation that I put all my other interesting elements on. This will be how I can keep my shape together without trying to figure out, does this shape look correct? Does this silhouette work for what I'm going for? And we can add on stuff to this. So if I wanted to, I'll add some elements at the bottom. We can add more hair on. Personally, I'm not, but this is our foundation. This is like our little paper doll. And now we're gonna dress it with other accessories so we get something that we like and we use up our papers. So I'll set that down on our little piece of paper. Really, I may or may not glue this down to a colored base, but that's it for now. So that's our first piece. Then we got to decide, out of these colors, what else can work with this? Or do we want to get rid of most of this? So there's nothing down here. So that means I've got to come up with some papers that'll look nice down there. And I did like my bubbles. So I want to use all of it? Probably not. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm actually going to cut just the section I like. So there's all kinds of stuff going on here. Some of it I like a lot, some of it not as much. I don't care for that as much. So I'm going to cut out the pieces I want. Makes it easier to handle. This business over here. I'm gonna chop that sucker up too. So yeah, I like that. And I'm also gonna pull out some of my, I made this paper a while back at an old workshop that we did for TCP's takeover. I really like these papers and I meant to get to them. I think they might give us a nice bit of pop. And again, these were all made the same way that I made this paper here, but this is not dry enough to use. So we're gonna have to set that aside. We'll visit it later when it's better settled in. Meanwhile, this was just done with the fork. plastic fork just scraped in there. Same thing with the top. This is the back of an eraser, just dipped in a little bit of black paint. So I really like seeing what type of marks you can get from stuff that's just laying around the house. I think we'll use this paper. It's just so bright and fun. Let's see what we'll do with that. Shall it be the main or a supporting character?
If we have clippings from a magazine or photos, are those okay to use as well for
Absolutely. So you're treating the magazines or the clippings, you can treat them the same way I'm treating these papers right here. And I should have brought some out. I used to just use magazines when I first started playing around with just collage, like years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Just magazine, I call it the paper chase, because I go through like Vogue and stuff and just look for really pretty patterns that were saturated in fashion magazines. I made some really nice stuff with that. So the same way you're treating that template on top of this paper that we made, you would do the same thing with the magazine. The only thing with magazine is it tends to warp a little bit. So when you start gluing it down, and I don't know if we'll have time to actually glue everything in place, just use a little bit less glue because it does wave up a bit. And I think I'm gonna cut again a piece on this, and we're gonna tape it down. And I'm still using that original silhouette that I just cut out. That way I know all of the pieces that I'm cutting off of here are still gonna fit in here. And I look to see like where there's some interesting marks on the paper and align that up to that. And Grace, for whoever asked about the magazine, Oil Pastel does nice, interesting things on top of the magazine paper. So that's something you can still kind of do your patterns and color on top of. Just a little slicker.
I really like the bright pink and yellows of your background.
Say that again.
I really like the bright pinks and yellows of your background.
Yeah, I like loud colors. And I was looking at my little piece I cut out. It's cool, but I was like, there's not enough joy in this piece of paper. I like this, but I would play with this base paper more. So we've got to pop it up a bit. Got to get a little bit more bam out of it.
What are some other ways that you actively try to incorporate joy into your artwork?
So believe it or not, I'm one of those people who is so, like, if there ever was a definition of a Taurus, and this is sounding rambly, but that's me. Like, I love things to be the same. The same. I really like ritual and routine. And part of my joy is just being able to completely have my things the same, which was really a problem during the pandemic. Let's be honest, the same was not allowed anymore. So even to go back to that question where you asked, like, well, what was it like as a maker during the pandemic? I spent the first 2 months in bed, Netflixed out, completely like disengaged. And my sister would call and be like, oh, that was art and conversations about this and that. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care. Please go away. I'm watching a movie. Because my routines have been so tossed about. So I had to find my rituals for this time again. And part of my joy has been really settling back into working here at the house and adjusting to my schedule, being not going to the studio after work, like being able to get up in the morning and just go to the studio. I had to find that joy in doing it though, because the ritual and the routine was just like, oh God, this is not my life. I didn't like the change at all. I wanted things to still be, even though I understand. But being able to find my routines again helps. And being able to listen to certain music is like critical. Anybody that knows me knows like I'm obsessed with Jacob Banks. It calms my nerves. There are certain songs when I'm angry with my kid, I will play them as almost like a reset button. And he knows if I'm playing these particular songs, okay, she trying not to be mad with me. Let me go be nice to her, or, try to get in good again. I find joy in just making things, but I had to find the routine to get motivated again, I guess you'll say. Oh, this is going to be so pretty, y'all. So pretty. Shall we see? Shall we see what it can be? So that's what that's going to be. I'm actually going to grab some black paper because I think it will give me some nice contrast with such a bright piece. This random bit of paper. So once we have our base, and I'm going to try to build this upside down so y'all can see. Does that look right over on your side, Grace?
Yes.
So I've got this base, and I was playing around with just more pattern making. I will be honest, I did not think this came out very well. But again, the rules say you don't throw anything away. You wait and see what else you can make of it. Like life, you don't get to start over. So I'm gonna just kind of move this around. I play with the paper, and then I feel like, that's good. We leave it there. So we're gonna leave that there, but now we have the challenge of, do we keep this paper? Maybe. I might let it be friends and be neighbors. We'll see. There's no end game yet. We'll see. So now that we've got that going on, we need features, we need some embellishments, we need some type of what's happening. We need an outfit and eyes and all that good stuff. So I don't really draw anything out. I just think about the shape. Matter of fact, for you guys, I'll draw something out. Just kind of start with the general shape of an eye. Since this has a circle in it, we'll use this piece. Why not? It may work, it may not. There's times I'll cut a piece of paper and it just doesn't work. Find a new piece. Find a new piece. I think that's too small. Nice thing about using the magazines is you can kind of look at the size of the image and match it up. And the eye doesn't have to be one piece. I'm just gonna go ahead and chop this sucker up. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Personally, I don't like that. I think that's too small. So we're gonna go bigger, much bigger on a different piece of paper. we'll leave this for now. It doesn't have to stay this way. Turn the other way. A little high. Now we're gonna build on that with, I think I need a little shadow under that eye. So I'm just gonna find a piece of paper that has a darker tone to it and cut a little curvy piece for that. Hopefully I've got enough for both sides. We'll see. Like making puzzle pieces, freehand puzzle. Maybe. For the nose, I don't really cut a nose a lot of times. I do what I call little watermelon seeds because they remind me of watermelon seeds or teardrops. I just let your eye kind of give the impression. I think this is too small. We'll see. I think that's a bit too tiny. I have to go around and look at it from the other side. It's all about putting the right color paper, tone of paper rather. So the dark places, like across the top of your eye. Your eyelid always has a little shadow for the most part. Oh, where are my tweezers? My little fingers. Tiny little elements. I think I'm gonna use these purple circles we made earlier for the eyeballs. Not even gonna make them perfectly round. It's not about that. Pop you in here, like that. Try to move a little bit faster so you guys can see one come together. A lot of times I'll sit and watch a movie, but not really watch a movie. I'll have some background noise on. Some type of movie I've already watched. Tweezers, Granny's tweezers are over there. Now, once you start getting something you like and you think it's gonna work for you, cannot stress enough. Take a picture of what you've got that you like, because things happen, like your AC coming on and blowing it away, or your dog coming over and bumping the table and knocking everything off. If you take pictures as you go, it really helps out a lot with putting it back together too. So at some point you're going to get an arrangement. You're like, oh, I like this. Like, this is cool. I want to save this. I want to glue it all down. When you're ready to glue it down, you're going to have to move things around. And in moving it, I can't tell you how many times I've lost a piece. It's like, I don't know what goes here. So the photo is a nice way to reference back the location of everything. It's like your little blueprint. Got a little thin strip here. I'm trying to shape my eyeball. It's not so. Just sitting there. That piece doesn't want to go, so we're going to take it out. That might be enough just with that little strip. You need a curve. So you just kind of let it happen. You look at it and you see what else it needs, kind of shape you think is missing. You move it around. Pen top works good. Even another little piece of paper. We need a mouth. I'm gonna make my mouth much more contrasty so it stands out. I've got this paper that's already got some of the pink on it. So I think I'll use that because that way I'm pulling in the pink, but I'm not just leaving it all so matchy. Too matchy right here. We're gonna break some of that up too. This looks like a lip shape. I found a piece of paper on there that already has kind of like this separation of color. You're just kind of looking at the paper and thinking about what does it need to do for you. So that's my little piece. And that really should go that way. But it's far too big, as y'all can see. So we're gonna trim it down. Trim it down. Way too big. Better to cut it too big and trim it down the size than make something tiny and then it's just a waste because it's too little. There's nowhere you can go with that. So have to save it for something else. I'll test that out. Still a bit too big, I think. And also, I think all of this will go down. My ear is here. All of this will come down just a tad for us. Oh, hush, Lucy. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So we're going to use, this is my bubble. Show my bubble work. I'm going to use this bit of paper we made earlier. And to get my shape right, because I don't want to guess, I'm going to go back to my template. And this is why you keep this, because it helps you cut your next pieces. With the oil pastel on the back, let's see if I can do this without knocking stuff over. I want a little piece to go across here in this area. So I want that shape that I can cut out. So I'm gonna just use that same little stencil business. Put my paper where I need it to go in that same area, right? I'm gonna trace that in my little template. I'm a little marks here to just follow. Doesn't have to be perfect because I only want the middle part. Check my fit. A little bit off. Too big on one side. We're gonna go back in. This lines up pretty good right there. And you could take a pen and kind of just mark where it stops at. Just make a little mark, trim that out.
I just want to check in and say it is 1:11. I am nowhere near done, so I don't know if anyone else was the same way as me, but maybe we can go for another 9 minutes and then show off
I'm
what
fine.
we created. Okay.
So my lip, I like my lip, but it needs a little contrast to stand away from here, the pink. So I'm just gonna get a colored pencil. You can use the crayon. Actually, what do I have? I'm just gonna go with the crayon because I already got it here. I'm just gonna put a little extra color there and shade that in a little bit along the edge and in the lip crease. And that may be enough, it may not be. I might still need my colored pencils. I still think I'd like it a little darker. Here you are, little marker. Here you go. That works for me. And even to the point where, let's just move that. So our chin is disappearing because we don't have a line for it. So we're just gonna cut a darker. You need a little dark line for that shape to come out right here. So same thing, we'll take our little stencil, we'll put it on top of the paper that we think we'll use. I like this purple. I think I'll use this purple. I'd love to use this blue that we made. It's just so wet. Wet. I still think I can get away with it on the bottom. Over here at least. I'm not gonna tape it, I'm just gonna, I'll make a new one of this particular one. You're getting too beat up anyway. This is our bit of paper that we made at the beginning. Still a bit wet, but I think he'd make a nice companion to this over here. That's what I'm gonna do. Fit that in there. Move you over. And here. That work for arch. Oh, tell me this.
Okay, so it's 1:20. Please continue to keep working, but if there's anyone who's at a stopping point and wants to show us what they've created, um, please feel free to. And maybe, Sachi, if you feel comfortable, you can start.
So I'm over here still playing. I will sit here and play with this later with you guys. Go on. I've got my little face I've started to build up. And I'm just thinking about what parts of the face I want to stand out, like this ear. I don't like that shape, but I am happy with my mouth. And I actually would go back in right underneath here. Once I'm comfortable where my placement is, and I just knock my nose out of alignment. So once I was comfortable where everything was, a lot of times we'll go back and just make a little mark, just so I know where to put that back. And also on the mouth, I like to just put a little smear shadow to kind of set it in space. But yeah, I like what I'm doing. But again, the trick, and I really recommend tweezers. Mine are over there. My fingers are a little sticky. The nice thing about this is you can keep playing around. Like, say I decided, you know, I really like this paper, but I've ultimately decided I don't like my base. I can just cut another piece out of all the papers that I already made. But I think for now, this is coming together nicely. It would probably take me another, I don't know, 20, 35 minutes of playing around. And I even have some ideas about how to add more pieces down here. Think about how you would accessorize yourself. Like right now, she's a bit plain. I would go ahead and maybe say, what could an earring look like? Even if that's just a simple, you know, impression of an earring. What could that look like? So even in just cutting this little shape right here, no, that needs to be a different color. Think about, and I said that was a bad color because it's the same color as the skin. Your brain will naturally want to make that part of her body. So that's why I said that's a bad piece of paper. But yeah, just being able to pull pieces and having them be the right shape, like even this might work. Doesn't have to be a lot. Your brain really wants to make stuff make sense. So just this little simple, and then maybe a little dot on top of that in one of our circles that we already made. It's really ultimately, when does it look like you're satisfied? Like when my eye says it's done, I may still have other ideas about what I wanted to do with it. But if you look at it and the piece says, no, like I'm good. This is all I want. This is all I need. It starts to build itself. Like I immediately like that little addition there with the orange little circle. I'll probably even add a little bit of black behind it for a shadow. But yeah, just playing around with it. I don't know if anybody had questions or got stuck anywhere. And magazine paper is fine. Like, be happy to use her head right here for my eyeball or a shadow on my little earring. I bet everybody's still working.
I am. Your earring idea just inspired me to make some of my own.
Right. It's little things that give it life.
I used to for mine. I used fabric because I didn't have as much paper, but I used fabric pieces.
Oh, I love fabric. Listen, there's a bin up here. I'm not going to pull it down, but there's a bin up there of different fabrics. There's a big fat roll I found at Goodwill, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, I just have all these pieces of fabric that I just, when I sew, I just put them into a box and just, I don't know.
It's perfect for that type of thing. Just never cut fabric as neatly as I wanted to.
Really sharp scissors help.
As I keep
like
having
something like these that are very sharp, you just have to be careful. But I don't use them on paper.
Yeah, I've been told that people who sew never want their scissors cut with paper.
Yeah.
Somehow messes them up.
Because they do get dull, yes. Yes, ma'am. I haven't glued anything down. Like when you're using
you should not. Listen.
Okay.
So I always say never glue anything down until you're sure. But that's where the phone comes into play. So I may like this and go have lunch and be like, ew, I'm not a fan anymore, you know? And then I might say, I'm gonna move it all around and I'm sad. I'm very sad because I've ruined it. I can't find any other way that I like it. And so if I take a picture of things as I go, and in this case, before you walk away from it for a little while, it just helps you pull it all back together. Don't glue anything down until you're absolutely sure.
Okay.
Like once you've got that final photo and you're like, this is it, that's when I pull out the glue, and that's when I'm like, okay, commitment. And I still end up like, believe it or not, where'd that piece go? I pulled it, I set it on the floor, yeah. So that piece went through several editions before the final glue down. And each version was fine. Each version had its own appeal. And yet, the final version, in my opinion, and the group of friends that I'm with, was the best rendition. So it could have went the other way, and I ended up messing it up to the point where I didn't like it anymore. And then I would have had to go in my photos and look and say, okay, cool, go back to this version here. And we're gonna cut some more of you up.
So we only have maybe 2.5 minutes left. We have a question from Leslie Jones who asked,
hey Leslie! Hey everybody, I don't know who's here. I'm just here by myself. I can't see you guys.
Leslie wants to know what your website is.
It's my name, Sachi, SACHI, studioart.com. Yep, .com.
Okay.
Made it, Leslie, yay.
So as this comes to a close, I want to first thank you, Sachi, for leading us in this workshop. I only had like colored pencils and like an Emory alumni magazine. So I ended up cutting a lot of that up and creating this little collage-esque thing.
Wait, I want to put that piece down though, because I'm obsessive. Wait.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. It's not complete yet, but
you
with it.
Oh, y'all can't even see what I see. Y'all got this jacked up view. I'm so sorry. Hold on, let me help y'all out. Like, life ain't right. And my eye is crooked, but I couldn't tell that upside down. But I do like that mouth, y'all.
And if anyone else wants to show their work within the last minute, I'm not sure if the Zoom will end automatically. Oh.
So yeah, let's do that. Okay, look at me trying to figure it out.
Julia, I love that.
So yeah, my eye, like even taking a picture makes your eye stop judging it and tells you the truth.
Right.
Like you take a photo of this and then immediately see like that I need to fix.
Oh, I like this. Yeah.
That eye. Like I can clearly see that the mouth works because it reads really well. The earring works like a charm.
Yeah.
And I thought my ear wasn't working, but I'm okay with that. But I can clearly see, like my eyes are not in alignment, but I couldn't see that sitting down. So you want to always stop and kind of check in with your work. And I wasn't as happy with this piece sitting down, but in standing up, I like it a lot more.
Yep.
Like I was like, you're kind of whack over here, but you're not. You're not. You just need a little bit more attention and stuff.
That's right.
Well, Randy, I like yours as well.
Yours?
I can't see anyone's.
You can't see it? Where's Randy's?
How do I get to see?
Randy, if you unmute yourself and
here
say
we go.
something.
Does that help?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
These are so, I could do this all day. I love this.
I want to see the people. Help me.
And this is
Okay, I figured it out. Look at me. Ooh. How do I make your screen big? Oh, good job, Randy. Nice.
Love this.
I'm loving all of this. Janine, hey friend. I want to see Janine.
I don't know if you can see mine or not.
Who's talking? Take yourself off mute.
That's Julia is speaking right now.
Oh, I gotta flip over.
Um,
Ooh, that's nice, Julia. That's nice. Okay,
That was
Janine,
with the fabric.
looking at yours. With the fabric? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fabulous. You're going to make me go get some big scissors.
does anyone else want to share?
Neen. Come on.
Did
Let's
anybody?
see. Sharing is caring. Hey, magazines. Hey, patterns.
Nice, beautiful.
Yes. Love those lips. They be looking like that. Oh, we came apart. That's okay. It wasn't glue down time. It wasn't glue down time. You were ahead of yourself. You were overachiever. It's fine. I am so glad everybody made such cool stuff. Oh, yay.
So we're a little bit after 1:30. If anyone else has any last comments, thoughts that they want to share, images of their work, please go ahead and do that now. But I want to thank you again, Sachi, for leading us in this beautiful workshop. It was a really great way for me to spend my Saturday afternoon. So we do have, you can check out Remerge. I'm going to add our website to the chat, as well as our social media. We will have more workshops coming up, so please stay tuned for that. Oh, thank you all so much for participating and taking time out of your day to be here with us. We here at Remerge and Color ATL believe that art is a way to connect with each other in deep and meaningful ways. It's a way to heal, to release, and we are all just like super honored that you all chose to spend some of your time with us today, and incredibly grateful for you, Sachi, for creating a space for us to do that with these mixed media figures.
Well, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Gonna finish these up today. So yeah, I'll post them later in the day probably, so y'all can see how I get all of this into something final product wise.
Yes, and this video was recorded, and so we will have the ability to share it with you all again sometime soon. Thank you again.
Thanks for coming. Hey, Janine.
I hope the rest of you, all of you, enjoy the rest of your day and have a beautiful weekend as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks,
for
Sachi.
stopping by,
Thanks,
spending
Grace
time
Maria.
with you guys. Bye.
Bye.